You need to watch this if you crave chills down your spine. Welcome to Soul Studios. Here, true crime meets the unknown. Suspense lurks in every shadow, and supernatural forces whisper from the dark. We craft chilling, edge-of-your-seat short stories inspired by the eerie, the unexplained, and the most haunting mysteries. 3 new stories drop every week, each one darker than the last. Are you ready to step inside? Subscribe now before the next story finds you.
In 1977, a brutal Chicago murder baffled detectives and seemed destined to go cold. For months, every lead dried up. No suspects, no motive, nothing but a city haunted by unanswered questions. But then investigators received a tip that should have been impossible. The source knew details no one outside the crime scene could have known. And what came next blurred the line between fact and the impossible. This is a chilling true story that will leave you questioning what you believe about life, death, and justice itself. If you love dark mysteries that linger long after the screen fades to black, hit subscribe and join us at Soul Studios, where some stories are too strange to be fiction. Late one winter night in 1977, firefighters forced their way into a smoke-filled Chicago apartment. Inside, amid the haze and flickering light, they stumbled upon a horrifying scene. A woman's body lay beneath a burning mattress, a butcher knife plunged into her chest. She had been stripped and posed in a disturbing way, as if a brutal ritual or assault had taken place. Investigators would soon realize this was no accident. It was a cold-blooded murder. But as detectives hunted for the killer, they had no clue that the victim herself was about to speak from beyond the grave, determined to expose her murderer. Detectives identified the victim as Teresita Basa, a 47-year-old hospital therapist known for her kindness and love of music. Who would do something so vicious to this quiet, well-liked woman? In the initial investigation, police combed through Teresita's charred apartment for clues. They learned she'd received 2 phone calls that evening, one about concert tickets and another believed to be from a friend. A single handwritten note was found in her diary that puzzled detectives. Get tickets for AS. Those initials AS lingered in the back of the lead detective's mind, but with no context, it wasn't much to go on. Weeks turned into months. Every lead fizzled out, and Teresita's case began to freeze over. By the summer of 1977, 6 months after the murder, it looked like the killer might never be found. Little did the frustrated Chicago detectives know, a bizarre tip was about to come in. One so strange they almost didn't believe it. Hundreds of miles away, a man was reporting an unusual witness to the crime, someone who shouldn't exist. This tip would crack the case wide open, but its source was impossible to explain. Meanwhile, in a quiet suburb just outside the city, Dr. Jose Chua was growing increasingly alarmed by what was happening to his wife, Remy. Remy Chua had worked with Teresita at the hospital, and in the months after the murder she had become withdrawn and anxious. Then the night terrors began. On 3 separate nights, Remy suddenly fell into a rigid trance-like state and started speaking in a voice that was not her own. Her eyes glazed over, and in the dim light of their living room she addressed her husband formally, pleading for help. "Doctor, please help me." Remy spoke, but the words seeping out were in Tagalog, a Filipino language she rarely used. Her voice sounded different, almost otherworldly. "The man who murdered me is still at large." Eerie whispering wind. Chua's blood ran cold. He gently asked, Who are you?" Remy's head tilted unnaturally and she replied, "Ako'y Teresita Basa. I am Teresita Basa." In that chilling moment, Dr. Chua realized his wife was channeling the dead colleague she had barely known. Through Remy, Teresita's spirit spoke with desperate urgency. Alan Showery was the man who killed her. He had come to her apartment under the guise of fixing her television, then attacked her, stabbed her, and stole her precious jewelry, a pearl ring and a jade pendant, before setting everything on fire to cover his tracks. Remy collapsed, awakening moments later in tears and unaware of what she had said. Dr. Chua was left shaking. He was a man of science, a surgeon, and couldn't easily accept what he'd witnessed. For a time, he hesitated to go to the police, fearing they'd think he was insane or making it up. But the haunting pleas from his wife's lips continued over multiple nights, each time begging him to inform the authorities before Showery struck again. The details were so specific and visceral that Dr. Chua could no longer ignore them. In August 1977, Dr. Chua finally walked into the Evanston Police Department and relayed the whole incredible story. The desk officers traded perplexed looks. A ghostly possession pointing to a killer? It sounded absurd. Yet, when Chicago detectives Joseph Stakula and Lee Eplin heard the name Alan Showery from their suburban colleagues, their eyes widened. They remembered the mysterious note in Teresita's diary. A.S. Could it be the same person? Showery was indeed a real individual, an orderly who had worked at the same hospital as Teresita and Remy. In fact, Teresita had reportedly been helping Showery out with small cash loans and paid him to do odd jobs because he was struggling financially. The coincidences were too strong to ignore. Although skeptical, Detectives Stakula and Eplin knew they had to follow up. No matter how crazy the source, a solid lead is a solid lead, one of them remarked as they gathered a team. After all, what did they have to lose? The case was ice cold, and now they had a specific suspect name tied to a clue from Teresita's own journal. With a mix of curiosity and caution, they prepared to confront Alan Showery, a man who had no idea the dead were about to knock on his door. On a late August afternoon, police descended on an apartment building on Chicago's north side where Alan Showery lived with his pregnant girlfriend. Showery answered the door calmly. He was polite, perhaps a bit nervous when the officers mentioned Teresita's name, but he allowed them to search his place. At first, everything seemed routine, until one detective opened a jewelry box on the dresser. His heart skipped a beat. Inside were a pearl ring and a jade pendant matching the description of Teresita's stolen jewelry exactly. Showery's girlfriend innocently explained that he had given these pieces to her as a late Christmas gift. The detectives exchanged sharp glances. This was the tangible proof they needed. The voice from the grave had been telling the truth. When confronted with the jewelry evidence, Showery's facade cracked. Detectives pressed him in the interrogation room, laying out the story piece by piece. Alan Showery's face went pale as they revealed how they learned of his involvement. He shifted in his chair, sweat beading on his forehead. At first he stammered denials. He had nothing to do with Teresita's death, he claimed. But as the evidence mounted, Showery's composure crumbled. Finally, in a trembling voice, he confessed. He admitted that on the night of February 21st, 1977, he had indeed gone to Teresita's apartment under the pretense of helping fix her TV. Once inside, he saw an opportunity. He attacked her, knocked her unconscious, and in a moment of panic and greed, stabbed her to death. He then staged the scene to look like a sexual assault, grabbed whatever jewelry and valuables he could find, and set the mattress on fire to destroy the evidence. The truth, as heinous as it was, had finally come out. Teresita's killer was in custody. Even after all this, a haunting question lingers. Did a voice from beyond truly solve the crime, or was there a more earthly explanation? Teresita's story doesn't end neatly, and that's what makes it so bone-chilling. Every element that Remy Chua revealed under possession turned out to be astonishingly accurate. The killer's name, the method, the stolen jewelry. Investigators confirmed that no public details about Teresita's case had been released at the time of Remy's episodes, making it unlikely she just heard it on the news. How could she have known these facts? Remy and Teresita weren't close friends, just co-workers. Some skeptics argue that Remy might have subconsciously picked up on office gossip or noticed Showery's suspicious behavior around the time of the murder. It was known at the hospital that Showery planned to visit Teresita's apartment to help with her TV, a detail anyone could have whispered in passing. Perhaps Remy pieced together the puzzle on her own, and due to stress or cultural beliefs, truly believed the message came from a ghost. In Filipino culture, as in many others, the idea of spirits seeking justice isn't so far-fetched. Could her mind have manifested Teresita's ghost to bring a killer to light? Others suspect something even stranger. They point out that Remy and Showery had a tense history at work. Reportedly, he had complained about her job performance before the murder. Did Remy harbour a grudge strong enough to concoct a ghostly tale and frame him? Showery's defence team floated this theory, even hinting that Remy could have been involved in the crime herself. But there was zero evidence placing Remy at the murder scene, and nothing to suggest she was a killer. In the end, the simplest explanation may be the hardest to accept. Teresita Basa's spirit might have truly returned for justice. Dr. Chua to this day maintains that he witnessed something supernatural in his living room. He had no other reason to know the killer's name or the fate of the jewelry, except that he was told by a voice that claimed to be Teresita. In the final analysis, the truth behind the Teresita Basa case remains partly ambiguous, suspended somewhere between fact and the unknown. Alan Showery was unmasked as the murderer and he went to prison for his crimes. That much is certain. But whether it was solved by conventional detective work or by a restless soul speaking through a friend, that is a mystery that endures. Was it coincidence, keen intuition, or truly a ghost's vengeance? As the years have passed, Teresita's story has taken on the sheen of urban legend, yet it's all documented as real. One thing is clear. A woman tragically slain somehow found her voice when she needed it most, and the next time you hear a floorboard creak in an empty room or catch a whisper on the wind when nobody's there, you might just wonder if it's someone like Teresita, refusing to remain silent. Some murders fade into cold case files, but this one refused to stay silent. Whether it was luck, intuition, or a voice from beyond, the truth clawed its way into the light. And if Teresita Basa could speak from the grave, what might the dead be whispering to you right now? Justice doesn't always come from the living.
Every story has an end, but here, the mysteries never stop. Thank you for watching and being a part of this journey into the unknown. Your support keeps these stories alive, and there's plenty more waiting for you. We drop 3 new stories every week, so if you crave suspense, the unexplained and the downright chilling, make sure you're subscribed and ready for what's next. Until then, keep your lights on, your doors locked, and remember, some stories stay with you long after they're told.